All right, macaroni and cheese. Everybody freeze. Good morning and welcome. I am Anna Wesley, a member of the board of the Unitarian Universalist Church in Reston. Whether you're on Zoom or here in the church sanctuary, we are so glad you are here with us this morning. No matter how old or how young you are, wherever you are in your spiritual journey, however you identify, and whomever you love, know you are welcome here. Joining us this morning is guest musician, celloist, Diane Chou. Diane is the artistic director at the Capitol Symphonic Youth Orchestras. She is also an educator with Fairfax County Public Schools and a frequent freelance performer throughout the DC area. Diane has shared her beautiful music with us before, and we warmly welcome her back this morning. Announcements. I would like to invite Kara Fortner, Chair of the Religious Education Committee, to share an announcement about the upcoming Halloween Carnival.
Good morning. Good morning. We do have a Halloween carnival coming up, and it should be lots of fun. We did a carnival, we've done a carnival every year, and this year we're going to do it a little bit differently. We're going to do it on a Saturday evening, October 28th, so the weekend of Halloween. The youth group is helping in creating a haunted space. We're going to have a fun bouncy house, and we're inviting the greater community to come and join us. Usually it's a little bit insular, and this year Reverend Aileen's great idea was to open it up, and so we're doing that. There's going to be lots of fun. We're going to do pie face. So if you are a kid and showing up and you want to throw a pie in my face, you'll have the opportunity to do that. Let's go. Also, if you are interested in volunteering, we would love your help. We still have some slots open for people to come and join us and either get pied in the face or watch the moon bounce or just overall keep things running, set up, break down, all that fun stuff. And it should be a lot of fun. We ask you also, I'm handing out flyers. We got flyers in the front and the back. If you know someone, neighbor, hand them a flyer, and say, come join us. It should be a lot of fun. I'm going to be inviting a couple of our neighbors, and it'll be a nice community event. We can dress up, and there will be a costume parade and winners of costume prizes, and it should be a lot of fun. So let me know if you're interested in helping out in any way. You come and find me.
Wait, one thing more specific. Now, can adults pie other adults? Just checked it for a friend.
Yeah.
It will be considered. It could be, we'll put it in for consideration.
Is there a charge maybe?
A charge. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe Anna will be on the pie face part. Thank you.
All right. We have several more announcements this morning. Join Reverend Aileen, UUCR congregants, and UUA staffer, Reverend Megan Foley, for a fun morning of storytelling learning at the Minister Startup Workshop this coming Saturday, October 21st. This workshop will include the opportunity to share stories, hopes, and dreams as we begin our new chapter with Reverend Aileen as our settled minister. All are welcome and encouraged to attend. Please look for an email with the RSVP link that will be sent after church today. We do not need you to RSVP today so that we can plan. Oh wait, we do need you to RSVP today so that we can plan appropriately. And then, Aileen from Caring Circle has an announcement.
Thank you. If you missed on the bottom of the sheet here or on the board, we are having a presenter next week that talks about having conversations about advanced care planning. This is a representative from Goodwin House who did a talk about hospice last year, so really invite people to come. If you have friends that might benefit for them, also invite them. Thank you.
All right, UUCR is holding a newcomer orientation on Saturday, November 4th at 9:30 a.m. If you are brand new or newish to UUCR, this is the event to attend if you have questions about Unitarian Universalism or UUCR. This brief and informative event will be hosted by Reverend Aileen and UUCR direct leaders. Breakfast, snacks will be provided, and child care will be available. For questions or to RSVP, contact membership co-chair Kathy Deleganis. And then our musical director, Cynthia, has an announcement to make.
Anna, good morning. I just wanted to put a plug out there for our children's choir. We're having our very first rehearsal today at 11:30 in the library downstairs, 11:30 to 11:50. All children ages 4 to 13 are welcome to join us, so please come and have your children give it a try.
It is auction season, friends. Please join us for the Please join us for the annual UUCR auction on Saturday, November 11th at 6:30 p.m. The auction will be held in person with online options so that all can participate. Childcare will be available. The auction is our largest fundraiser, and it's also a lot of fun. The online catalog is open for donations and early bids. An email will be sent out later today with full details about the auction, including handy how-to sheets. Stop by the East Foyer after worship to purchase your raffle tickets for the beautiful Caring Circle quilt. The auction team will be very happy to answer any questions you have, and please look for the lady wearing the sunshine hat. All right, now let us center ourselves for worship. Please take some deep, quieting breaths with me. Let us enter our time of worship together as we listen to this morning's prelude, Adoration by Florence Price. Sarah?
Thank you to Diana and Diane for our beautiful prelude this morning. I'm Reverend Aileen Fitzke, and our opening words are from the Charge to the Article 2 Commission. The new principles and purposes should guide us in the transformation of ourselves, our community, and our faith into active networks of collective care, restoration, and justice. The principles and purposes you will prepare should be a living document that challenges Unitarian Universalists to place the liberation in all its dimensions of all at the center of our lives. They should be honest about our past, name what we are facing and our aspirations and where we hope to be, not just for today, but looking out into the horizons. They should ask us to choose love in action as our path forward.
Our opening hymn is number 300, With Heart and Mind. Please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing. With heart and mind and voice and hand, may we this time and day stand to make our purpose understood. Our mortal search for mortal good, our forlorn and to the goal of justice, freedom, peace for all. A mind that's free to seek the truth, a mind that's free in need and youth, to choose a path no threat impedes, wherever light of conscience leads. Our martyrs died so we could be a church where every mind is free. A heart that's kind, a heart whose search makes of the spirit of our church, where we can grow and each one's gift is sanctified and spirit's lift, where every door is open wide for all who choose to step inside.
Good morning. I'm Sterling Paulette. Welcome to our church. Steve Ewart is home taking care of his wife, Carolyn, who recently came home from the hospital. The chalice lighting Steve gave me to read is called Sacred Knowing, Unknowing by Amy Carol Webb. We light this flame for the art of sacred unknowing, humbled by all that we cannot fathom in this time. We come into the presence of what we do know, perhaps the only thing we can ever know, that love is now and forever the only answer to everything and everyone in every moment.
Here at UUCR, we have a sacred tradition of singing our covenant together every Sunday. Love is the spirit of this church. So we invite you to remain seated as we sing our covenant together. And if you are visiting us this morning for the first time, we hope you will accept this song as our blessing to you.
It is now time for all ages, so I invite all those who are young and young at heart to come forward and join us here in the front. Come on up. So our Time for All Ages story this morning was written by the Reverends Kimberly Tomchak Carson and Jennifer Nordstrom, and they will introduce us to our new Article 2.
Reverend Aileen, we have this big, heavy wonder box filled with amazing ideas that a lot of people are starting to wonder about. It says Article 2 in big, bold letters on the side of the box, which is an odd name, and maybe why there is so much wondering about it. There is so much in this wonder box. I could use some help. I wonder if I could ask you to help me unload this wonder box for everyone.
I would love to help you. Oh, wait, did you notice that on the other sides of the box, it looks like the box has more than just Article 2 inside of it. One side has our 7 principles. And the other side has a list. It says Jewish and Christian teachings, prophetic words, humanist teachings. Oh, these are the inspiration and sources of our Unitarian Universalist faith. You're on this side. The last side says the purpose of Unitarian Universalism.
This must be a very important box. I see here in the fine print instructions, it says something about the UUA bylaws. Could this box contain part of our UUA rules that help govern our association of UU churches around the world? Let's see. Oh yes, Article 2 is part of those rules that are UU principles, purpose, and sources. A very important box. Look. There's a plant in here. Probably not the best place for a living thing. Stuck in some box for a long time and not cared for. Plants need tending. I wonder why there's a plant in this bylaw box.
I think I know. It's because we are a living tradition, just like this plant.
That's why the gray hymnals we use each week say, singing the living tradition. Look, there is something stuck to the bottom of this plant. There we go. It is a list of questions. Good questions for wondering. It's saying, why do we exist? What do we value? And where do we come from? Great wondering questions in our wondering box.
Yes, we are a living tradition because UUs keep returning to these questions. Many times over the last 200 years, UUs have come together as people to talk and disagree and compromise, and through relationship make meaning together. In fact, we have done this so many times, usually once a generation, that we made a rule that we should do it every 15 years. But as of today, it's been 30 years since the last time we updated our faith's shared covenant, values, and inspirations.
I see a lot of rough drafts here. I see the original principles from 1961 in here. That one is where all the language refers only to the dignity of man and leaves out all other genders. Thank goodness we changed that. I know why that is in our box. 10 years ago, some smart UUs of color said we should add anti-racism and anti-oppression to our UU values, and they began organizing to add an 8th principle to our 7 principles, so we could finally name being anti-racism as a UU value.
Yes, and they helped us remember why we need to have another faith-wide conversation, asking, why do we exist? What do we value? And where do we come from? We're really late, more than 30 years, and we have learned so much. We want our Unitarian Universalist faith to reflect all the wisdom we have learned, and to help us get there, over the last few years, leaders at the national level have been holding conversations, asking UUs all over the country about these questions.
Now, the leaders working on this have taken all those conversations and works to create a new statement about why we exist as a faith, what matters to us most, and where do we come from. Reverend Aileen, can you look? It should be in there somewhere. Can anyone guess what that document is called? It is the Article 2 study report.
It's here. It's hard to reach past all these love hearts. The Article 2 study report says we exist because of love. It says the purpose of the Unitarian Universalist Association is to actively engage its members in the transformation of the world through liberating love. It says that love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. What do you think about that? Is love what holds us together?
I love it. Finally, the word love is part of our statement of faith. I must tell you though, those 7 principles are not perfect, but they do have some fine ideas and words in them. I am all about changing as we learn and grow, but do we really have to give up on all our principles?
The way we name them and explain them is changing. Their words are different. But the seeds of each of the principles we learned in RE and here in the sanctuary are all still inside the new words. The one that talks about honoring the interdependent web of all existence is first now, so we start with the web. The one that talks about how every person has inherent dignity and worthiness now also talks about each person being able to flourish in that worthiness and how we will work together to make that flourishing possible.
And love is the center of it all.
Yes, love is at the center of it all. There are 2 more big things left in the box. A clock and a ballot.
I know what those are about. The Article 2 study report came out and was shared by the UUA board, and now the clock is ticking on our democratic process. This Article 2 draft went to the 2023 General Assembly, the national gathering where UUs from all over the country gather to make democratic decisions together, for a vote. There were opportunities at GA to give input and feedback and debates. People did the things we've always done, came together and discussed, felt passionately and disagreed and compromised and made things better and made meaning together. And they voted to continue the process. And this is such a big deal, and we want so many people to be involved and have their voices heard that we'll vote on it again at the General Assembly in 2024.
Yes, and the updated draft with the amendments voted on last summer will be released soon in the coming weeks. UUCR has delegate spots for members who want to actively participate in GA this coming year.
Thanks, Reverend Aileen. This Article 2 Wonder Box feels much lighter now, especially since most of this process is infused with love.
Thank you all. That was your introduction to Article 2. And so now
Do you have a question?
we'll have the children go to their classes. You can keep them.
Yeah.
That's there for you. It's now in the time in our service for our sharing of joys and concerns so that no one ever has to hold them alone. If you are joining us remotely this morning, you may wish to light a real or virtual candle wherever you are this morning to mark what is in your heart. As members of the in-person congregation here at UUCR, place stones in the water in the sanctuary. If those of you at home would like to share what is on your heart today in the congregational chat on the screen, please write to all attendees. And please remember that what you share is public. Those at home may then read each other's joys and concerns shared in the chat, and then enter into your own time of reflection and prayer. As we all listen to Diana and Diane play our meditation music. and meditation, spirit of life and love that so faithfully animates our creation. We are grateful for this community that is with us in both times of joy and sorrow. We hold in our hearts this morning all who are facing any hardship or difficulty, those who are grieving or facing illness or disability in themselves or their friends or loved ones. In particular this morning, we hold in our hearts and prayers the Israeli and Palestinian people. I will light a candle for them and share the words of UUA President Sofia Betancourt from a statement she released this week. Reverend Sofia Betancourt writes, "Beloveds, I invite you to stop what you are doing if you can, and sit with me in the depths of this tragedy. How to reconcile the cost of occupation and of war. How to nuance two very real histories of oppression and violence. I am holding close the words of UN Middle East peace envoy Tor Wennesland, who said, 'This is a dangerous precipice, and I appeal to all to pull back from the brink.' We as a people of faith can condemn violence against civilians while at the same time engaging the full legacies and histories of oppression that shape such devastating conflict. As a faith tradition, Unitarian Universalists have long worked for peace, and our principles and values call for the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. At the same time, we have not engaged the tangled issues surrounding Israel and Palestine in community since 2018, and our last engagement resulted in severed relationships and deep pain. I pray for the people of Israel and Palestine. I pray for the leaders around the globe who must respond to this latest flare of violence and the untenable ethical considerations that abound. I pray for Muslim and Jewish UUs who experience the impact of this long strife acutely. I pray that those of us less likely to know the trauma of unending brutality and harm will not turn away from generational loss, from the devastating realities and their root causes, or from the relentless tragedy of war and occupation. Be gentle with yourselves when you need to be, but do not turn away unless you must. We are one global family living tenuously on the same human-impacted earth. Let us center ourselves in justice as we call for peace.
Words. As a self-funded church, UUCR relies on the generosity of its members and friends to fund daily operations and to ensure the church and its resources are here for us and others, now and in the future. Pledges support our worship and our music programs, our religious education programs, programs for members and friends, community outreach, and connections to Unitarian Universalism. We now invite you to support the work of UU Reston by making your donation to the collection plate, or you are here in the sanctuary, or at the link on the slide and in the chat box if you're on Zoom. Thank you for your generosity and support of our beloved spiritual home.
Thank you for the choir. That was beautiful. In 1961, the Unitarians and Universalists merged. Each of them brought with them a set of principles or professions that neither would have considered a creed. The Universalists brought the Winchester profession, first ratified in 1803 and then revised over years. It had 5 statements of belief, but ended with this, in my modern ears, passive-aggressive statement. The Winchester profession is commended as containing these principles, but neither this nor any other precise form of words is required as a condition of fellowship, provided always that the principles above stated be professed. In the course of its 150-year history prior to the merger, Unitarians also had a number of statements of principle and purpose. At the end of World War II, the American Unitarian Association had developed a plan of expansion because the war years had been detrimental to its member congregations. A. Paul Davies, the quite well-known minister of All Souls, D.C., took on the task with other fellow ministers to come up with a set of principles for this period of growth in the denomination. These principles were as follows: individual freedom of belief, discipleship to advancing truth, the democratic process in human relations, universal brotherhood undivided by nation, race, or creed, and the allegiance to the cause of a united world community. According to Edward A. Frost in his book With Principle and Purpose, the principles were widely accepted, quoted in denominational literature, and included in the statements of purpose, covenants, and bonds of union of many congregations. And then we had the merger of 1961 of the Unitarians and Universalists. A revamping of the principles and purposes was necessary to reflect the principles of the now 2 merged denominations. The new principles and purposes read as follows. In accordance with these corporate purposes, the members of the Unitarian Universalist Association, dedicated to the principles of a free faith, unite in seeking 1, to strengthen one another in a free and disciplined search for truth as the foundation of our religious fellowship. 2, to cherish and spread the universal truths taught by the great prophets and teachers of humanity in every age and tradition, immemorially summarized in the Judeo-Christian heritage as love to God and love to man. 3, to affirm, defend, and promote the supreme worth of every human personality, the dignity of man, and the use of the democratic method in human relationships. 4, to implement our vision of one world by striving for a world community founded on ideals of brotherhood, justice, and peace. 5, to serve the needs of member churches and fellowships, to organize new churches and fellowships, and to extend and strengthen liberal religion. And 6, to encourage cooperation with men of goodwill in every land. The God language in Principle 2 was to appease the Universalists, for whom God language was still an important inclusion. These were the accepted principles, with some language revisions in the 1970s to update sexist exclusive language in the original. They were until 1980s. Notice particularly there were no sources, only principles. So what precipitated the change in the 1980s? Does anyone who was UU at the time remember? In a word, women. In the larger society, the feminist movement was gaining momentum, and this momentum was felt by women within the denomination. In the earliest days after the merger, fewer than 40 women were ordained into the ministry. With the growing momentum of second-wave feminism, more UU women began to attend seminary and enter the ordination process. Writes Natalie Malter in a documentary history of Unitarian Universalism. However, Many Unitarian Universalist women were aware that while numbers of women in ministry continued to increase, patriarchal language, liturgy, and theology continued to pervade the association. In the 1970s in Lexington, Massachusetts, Lucille Shuck Longview, along with a small group of UU feminists, crafted a resolution that they said would initiate a search within the Unitarian Universalist Association for the religious roots of sexism. At General Assembly in Ithaca, New York in 1977, the resolution on women and religion passed unanimously. This was an historic achievement, but the women knew it would have no teeth unless some immediate, significant action were taken in response. In 1979, the Women and Religious Committee, under the leadership of Leslie Arden Westbrook, convened a continental gathering of women, lay and clergy at the Grailville Retreat Center in Ohio to consider ways to implement the commitments of the 1977 resolution, including eliminating sexist language and stereotypes from UU worship and ministerial settlement. The outcome of ideas of this gathering would serve as the impetus of the revisions of the UUA principles and purposes. The Women and Religion Committee drafted a document with amendments to the existing principles, which essentially completely rewrote them. These amendments were later recrafted in 1980 by the Women and Religion Coalition Convocation and were disseminated to districts and congregations for their consideration. The amendments were sponsored by 5 districts and 14 congregations. This was enough to place them on the agenda of the 1981 General Assembly in Philadelphia. However, the language of the amendments was, to say the least, very, very controversial. Looking back on them now, they seem very mild, but at the time there was an enormous hue and cry. UU Christians were upset because any God language had been removed. You remember the concession to Universalists at the merger. Several newspapers and at least one news magazine at the time proclaimed that the Unitarians were proposing to remove God from their bylaws. Feminism was explicitly mentioned. Even the UU Women's Federation were convinced there was no way these amendments were going to pass. So, after a lot of backroom wheeling and dealing, what was announced at General Assembly was the charge to put together a group of people to study the principles and devise revisions. The original principles had been written only by male ministers, so the new group would be comprised of lay and ordained people, as well as a balance of women and men. The first draft was introduced to GA in 1983, where, of course, multiple amendments were proposed. The principles were no longer just principles. They had become principles and sources. They kept the God language only in the sources. And in 1985, with additional revisions, the 7 principles and 5 sources were approved by the delegates at General Assembly. The 6th source, proposed by the National CUPS group, was approved 11 years later by a very slim margin. I find it absolutely fascinating, though, that they removed any explicit mention of feminism. I give this history because part of the understanding of Article 2 and the creation of the current iteration of principles and sources was that it be reviewed every 15 years so that they could accommodate any revisions and changes that needed to be made to reflect societal changes and commitments. It has been more than 30 years. And here we are again. This new round of revisions began as, again, the result of those marginalized by the larger UU faith. The 8th Principle Project was started to address this shortcoming. Paula Cole-Jones, who was the Director of Racial and Social Justice for the Joseph Priestley District, noticed after 15 years of working with congregations that people could be good UUs and follow the 7 principles without ever thinking about or dealing with racism at the systemic level. While there had been initiatives for racial justice in the past, support and funding for anti-racism work began to run out at the institutional level at the UUA by the early 2000s. The 8th principle was crafted by Paula Cole-Jones and Bruce Pollock Johnson in collaboration with Blue, Black Lives of UU. In 2013, the 8th principle reads as follows. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote, journey toward spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community, by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. In part, this was written in reaction to the death of Trayvon Martin and the deaths of other young Black people at the hands of police. The adoption of the 8th principle by almost 300 UU congregations, including this one, showed grassroots support for this principle. As well as the 8th principle, other language in the 7 principles has been under review. The change in the language of the 1st principle to include the inherent worth and dignity of all beings, not just people. The review of the 5th principle to ask the question whether we really are a democratic institution if only those with money can go to GA and act as delegates. Ironically, this changed during the pandemic because they had to put everything online, so then they were able to develop ways that people could be delegates at GA without actually having to pay for GA. Because of all these changes, in 2017, like in 1981, there was a charge at General Assembly to create a commission to review Article 2. The heart of this charge was, we therefore charge this commission to root its work in love as a principle to guide its work, attending particularly to the ways that we and our root traditions have understood and articulated love, and how we have acted out of love. The logo for the new Article 2 revisions is right here. You'll note that love is at the center. The revisions in Article 2 are now based on 7 values: interdependence, equity, transformation, pluralism, generosity, and justice, with love at the center. In the fall of 2022, the first draft of the Article 2 revisions was widely disseminated, and there was a call for feedback, and several nationwide feedback sessions were held. Hundreds of people attended these sessions, and the feedback was incorporated into the second draft, which was released by the Article 2 Commission as part of the Article 2 study report. At General Assembly 2023, delegates made amendments to the draft and voted. In the next couple of weeks, actually, it's projected October 20th, the official draft of Article 2 with amendments incorporated will be released for review. I was hoping it would be available before this sermon, but oh well. And at General Assembly 2024, we will be voting to approve the new language for Article 2. Change is never easy, but it is important for us to move forward as a denomination, incorporating the diverse voices of as many of our members as possible. We are a living tradition, and as such, we are ever-changing, ever-evolving to meet the challenges of each new age, like our transcendentalist forebears that I talked about a couple weeks ago. Knowing that, as a whole, we hold love at the center. Amen, and blessed be.
Our closing hymn is number 1058, Be Ours a Religion. Diane will play it through all the way one time as our introduction, and then we will sing it twice. It's rather short. So please rise, embody your spirit, and join us.
Our benediction, Love is Our Greatest Purpose, is by J. Abernathy, Jr. We affirm that love is our greatest purpose. Accepting one another is the truest form of faithful living. The search for truth is our constant star. We pledge our hearts, minds, and hands to challenge injustice with courage, to find hope in times of fear, and to live out our Unitarian Universalist values every day as a beloved community. Thus do we covenant with each other and with all that is sacred in life.
We have now come to the end of our service, and it's time to extinguish our flame. But of course, not the light of hope and truth, nor the warmth of community, nor the fervor of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
That was beautiful. Change gonna come through us working all together. All right. We invite our congregants to join us for coffee or tea and fellowship. Don't forget to stop by the foyer to purchase auction raffle tickets. Hint, hint. You can ask your auction questions and have the team help you come up with creative ideas of items to offer up for auction. Those attending worship on Zoom can join us for virtual Greet Your Neighbor coffee hour to discuss the service theme and enjoy fellowship with other congregants. The link is in the chat box and will be on the forthcoming slide. We hope you use the chat box as a virtual receiving line to leave a message about your appreciation for the worship service. And today is a pretty perfect looking day out there, so you might want to get outside and do a few things. All right. Go out there.